in Cowra, and I'm talking to Mayor Bill West from Cowra Council, and you've just presided over what has been described by Professor Mick Dodson as a rather historic resolution. Can you tell me what happened?
Well, I guess the Justice Reinvestment has been a program or something that's been happening in Cowra for as a hypothetical investigation by an ANU team, and as a result of that, Council has now resolved, the Committee of Council has resolved to recommend to the full Council, sounds a bit convoluted, but to recommend to the full Council that we support the Justice Reinvestment pilot in Cowra based on the findings and the work of Dr. Jill Guthrie and Professor Mick Dodson and their team from ANU, and that we will support that by advocacy and by working with various stakeholders in the intergovernmental collaboration field. So we will work very strongly with state and federal politicians, as well as the various organisations in Cowra, NGOs and government bodies that are responsible for a whole myriad of services within this area.
Some of that, of course, will involve trying to get funding, but let's come to that after. You talked at the forum that we've been at before, that a number of people spoke at that, about the fact that Cowra actually hasn't come to this through a crisis in crime or spectacular focus on the area. What brought Cowra's involvement in looking at justice reinvestment as a concept?
Certainly wasn't that Cowra has a crime history or a crime rate, far from it, but we have a significant Aboriginal population in some respects, but the research team also had some local ties, so they knew the community, they knew the background, were quite comfortable in Cowra, so I think that was probably one of the precursors in their decision to come to Cowra and work off the Wiradjuri country, if you like, and off the banks of the Lachlan River, but also bear in mind that the research document is about not just about Indigenous youth, it's about young people of all ages, and be they Indigenous or non-Indigenous, because I think that everybody acknowledges that there are issues with youth, and if we can prevent them going to jail or prevent them getting into the system, or when they are at that early stage, keep them out of it, then it's a benefit to not just them but to the entire community.
You said also that when you began to be involved in the project on day one, you really didn't have a clue of what might actually happen, but from what you've said at the forum, you've become a big fan not only of the concept and approach of justice reinvestment, but the process of this research project, yeah?
Oh, very much so. They walked into the room of the first meeting. Mick Dodson was sitting there quietly on a bench, not saying a great deal. A couple of academics were there, and yeah, you just sort of wonder where this is all going to go. But the process has been really good process. It's been an eye-opener. It's been a hypothetical case to start with, so it hasn't been demanding of dollars or demanding of people's time in any sort of significant regard, except of course the research teams, and they've gone through a really good process, taken time, done it properly. The methodology has been something that I really think is great, and I think I made the comment earlier that too often we see a problem, real or perceived, and we come up with some sort of a knee-jerk reaction, which sometimes is worse than the problem was to start with. So this is one where they've really gone through slowly, identified the issues and identified what the community thinks may be a way out of it, because at the end of the day, part of this process is about the community engagement and the community ownership.
On that then, was there any opposition in the community about it? I mean, it does challenge notions of what justice should be, and it does challenge a lot the tough on crime approach. Was there opposition in the community, and how have you addressed that?
I've not really struck any great opposition. I'm really been very pleasantly surprised with the community. Obviously there's a few sceptics, but no, I genuinely can say that the overwhelming majority of the community have been very supportive of the notion from day one, because I think they understood that it was a hypothetical, and it was something that was going to look at it in a whole different light to the way we address problems, and I think the community understood that just locking kids up or getting on this path to being sent to Coventry, so to speak, it wasn't a way to treat young people, and if there's a better way, then let's look at it, and they have.
Now, you also said at the beginning you suspected that what you might end up with was a huge wish list of things, but in fact, what have you found? What have you ended up with?
Well, yeah, part of the public forums that were being held, and I wasn't part of all these, and that was deliberately so, and the community had to have their comment. And when they were looking at what the community might need and what the community thought Cowra might need to provide, you get a little bit nervous that you could finish up with, metaphorically speaking, the Taj Mahal. But really pleased with the modest requests or the modest suggestions, but also the understanding that the community, and I shouldn't say that, but the understanding the community had of the problem, how best to solve it, and or how best to deal with it. And some of those were modest, but also very practical and very sensible.
Can you run us through those modest wishes?
Well, the modest wishes were obviously things like jobs, employment, things like how the schools can interact, more things to do for kids out of hours, better relationship with some of the state government bureaucracies, closer working with getting job skills and getting kids skilled up, a little bit of TLC, looking after kids and making sure they're okay, safe houses, halfway houses, things such as that. So there was a whole myriad of those suggestions which I think resonated with everybody.
You've shepherded this through fairly thoroughly and quite passionately. What inspires you about it, and what drives you on it?
I guess the initial, well, the two things to start with. I guess the first thing was that it's an opportunity to have a ringside view of how we can do things differently in terms of, and we've still got a long way to go, of course, in lobbying governments and presenting facts and figures to government, and looking at a different methodology and in raising the important issues. That was one I've been very interested in and watched all the way through. The other one is, of course, it's just simple that we have young people out there who deserve to be looked after and deserve a go. I'm not saying that they all do, and clearly there are those out there who will commit crimes of a nature that incarceration is the appropriate alternative or the appropriate way forward. But for some of these low-end crimes, these kids who are finding themselves in trouble, and I think as one of the presenters today made the observation that you don't have to be young to make mistakes and get it wrong. I think that people a bit older sometimes make mistakes, and me included, get it wrong. So it's nice to be a caring and compassionate and civilised community that give people a bit of a fair go.
Okay, so you made the point that there's some next steps to go with this, and it would be great if you could talk about them, but also in the context that you emphasise this is not a silver bullet. No,
I think that we can very quickly get excited about where we're at in these sort of processes, and the fact that the committee has unanimously supported the mayoral minute to move forward with this, and I'd assume that will get replicated through into the full council meeting next week, and we will move forward through with it. But I think that too often we get caught up in the euphoria and see it as a quick fix, and we'll move on quickly. This really is going to be a slow process, and I think we need now to be making sure that we can actually attract some dollars, some new money, as I think has been referred to, so that we can employ a CEO of some sort to actually now start to bring people together and work out a program as to how this might work, and get all the key players, the schools, the health, the police, the local government, the PCYC, the business chambers, some of the employers in town, the education providers outside of the schools, the NGOs. There are so many out there in the community that we need to try to bring together so we can have what I'd call an adult discussion about it all. And I think I note that in communities further to the west there appears to be a lot of services being provided, but it's in a bit of a mishmash kind of way and really doesn't quite hit the ground. And I think that it's important that what we do, we actually target it so it hits the ground. And on that then,
you must have had quiet moments where you sort of think how this will all end. Could you say that if all of that happens in 10 years' time, what would we see in Cowra?
Oh, sometimes you ask me to have a crystal ball, or sometimes you're on a journey and you don't know quite how you got on the journey, but it's a wonderful journey, I must say. In 10 years' time, crystal ball, I wish certainly that there would be a greater buzz around the community and a greater opportunity for young people to get better educated, have better home life, but those who unfortunately don't have a better home life to be protected, to be looked after, nurtured in the community, and more jobs. better job opportunities and better skill opportunities to upskill, and in some respects a better opportunity for families with jobs and so forth. So I see it's a whole broad spectrum of wishes that I'd like to see this bring to the table.
Yeah. Mayor West, thank you very much for your time.
Been my pleasure. Thank you for your interest.